to be able to diversify their portfolio, their financial portfolio. And so many people are dealing with this economic morass. And even when you look at the African-American consumers and consumerism, they spend $1.1 trillion a year. Mm-hmm. And so we have to do better with empowering the people financially. A lot of people are not really financially literate or have financial literacy courses or really don't know what direction to go in. So we have people like you come in, financial mavens come in to be able to give these people the strategies and guidance that they need. And so I tell people, if you don't know what direction to go in with your financial future, reach out to people like you, Dee Bowden, mm-hmm. financial maven, financial coaches to help guide them so they can have the quality of life that they so rightfully deserve. But a lot of times, some people really have not been taught financial literacy and the keys. So when we bring people in here like you'll be able to show people how to balance that out. Because, like I say, so many people are dealing with economic inequalities and economic disparities, and it just really have not been taught to have the keys to really get them that propel them to the next level. But we have to realize as God's people, we are resilient. But we have to stand on principles that's already been placed, even in the Word of God. He has given us the keys, but we have to take action. We have to be action-oriented. And we have to learn, and we have to have this knowledge base. And like people like you have that's been in the industry over 10 years, you could talk the talk and walk the walk.
Well,
and so
you.
we really appreciate what you're sharing. And I tell you, Dee, what you have shared with us today is a bold and brilliant grand strategy of action that can be executed by anyone who is willing and able to develop a personal sense of integrity, economic intelligence, intense work ethics that will allow them to take the wheel of their lives and drive forward towards their own best destiny. And it's truly eye-opening, the vision that you share with us, and it will bring us to a sense of oasis of clarity in our life, to give us a sense of economic destiny that we need to lead us into. And so we really taken hold to this because this can be life-changing.
It absolutely. Mm-hmm. It absolutely can. Sorry, Ms. Tammy, for interrupting. I actually, just as you were talking, my brain, as you all know, I get very excited, so I have to jump in when the excitement is running. So, a couple of things to echo and actually confirm what you said. One of the things in terms of economics is into biblical principles. I happen to believe in tithing. I believe that, number one, if you're in a financial mess, I believe the first step to getting your life turned around, to getting the rudder turned around, is to put God first. I believe, and you can argue or disagree. That's fine. This happens to be my personal belief, and I happen to have seen the blessings of putting God first. I learned a long time ago that you put God first, you also pay yourself, and then you live off the balance. So it's the 10% to God, 10% to yourself, and then you live on 85%. Another thing I'd like to add for the people that may be struggling financially, excuse me, I have a friend, his name is Joe Sangal. It's S-E-N-G-A-L. He has a course that's called I Was Broke, Now I'm Not. And the website for it is www.iwbnin.com. That's www.iwbnin.com. And what the thing was I was broke, now I'm not. And he has a great teaching on how to prepare yourself for economic challenges. And it starts off with putting God first, paying yourself afterwards, and then creating a budget. People don't like budgets, but here's the thing. If you expect to get out of your financial mess, you have to change it by doing different things. You can't keep, insanity is doing the same thing expecting different results. A lot of people say, well, why would you talk about God? Because he's important. I mean, God was a businessman. Let's just go here for a minute. God was a businessman. He was and still is the best business manager partner ever. If you sit down and just read the book of Proverbs, there are every chapter, there's 31 chapters of Proverbs. Every chapter teaches you some piece of business. It talks about knowing the state of your flocks. In business terms, that means knowing how much cash flow you have. It's on the state of your accounts, how many contracts you have, how much money was made in sales, how much money needs to be billed out, how much money needs to be collected, and the contract. If you're looking to make a change financially, it starts with getting some new information. You know, you may or may not agree with me, and that's fine, but here's the thing. I can tell you from personal experience, I was never able to collect $20 million without putting God's principles into action. Most of the people who are successful have some form of biblical principles working in their life every single day. You have Dr. John Maxwell. You have Joel Osteen. Of course, you have Joyce Meyer. You have, I mean, I could go down the list of all the ministers. Whether you agree or disagree is not the point. The point is that there are people that are successful in business, like the David Bachs, like the Dave Ramseys, like et cetera, who talk about putting God first, paying yourself second, and then living off the balance. So part of it is making decisions that you want your life to look differently, but you have to acknowledge that you need help. You have to acknowledge that you're willing to go get the information. And number three, acknowledge that you made some mistakes, and it's okay. I think that's the other piece too around finances. A lot of people are embarrassed to acknowledge that they've made mistakes. Guess what? We all have. We all have done some things that we're like, oh, man, I wish I had never done that. Okay, cool. Well, you did. Well, guess what? It's now 2019. If you want the rest of 2019 to look differently, then you need to make some different decisions. And the first way you start that is to acknowledge that you've messed up and then seek help. Seek help.
That's quite deep. That is something to really think about and ponder on. And I believe Candace, she can further expound on that as well.
Okay, so I'm sitting here trying to hold myself together. That is Dee Bowden. Let me talk
yes,
to you, ma'am. That is one of my most quoted scriptures, know the state of your flock. If you understand what you're doing and what you're saying to the listening audience, a lot of us are looking for supplemental books on finances, but if you go to the book, right, of Proverbs, you know, again, Solomon being who, right, one of the richest men to ever live, it was based on biblical principles and kingdom and wisdom grounded in kingdom principles. And sometimes as believers, we fail to believe everything the Word says, and we fail to utilize and glean from godly wisdom that we can then apply to our lives day to day. Thank you so much for sharing that. I really, really cannot begin to tell you how much of a blessing you are today. And also, as Tammy spoke earlier about me having, you know, an opportunity to speak to the government shutdown, I work for the government, and that thing really shook me because the Father said to me, you know, you're relying on what you think is a lot of good money, but if you do not step out in faith and do the other things that I've told you to do, I'll shut the whole government system down to let you know that is not you are not to depend on that thing. I'm your provider, and so you get the resources, you get the talent, you know, that's stirred up in you, and you apply my word to your life, and you begin to execute my plan for you. And so I just love how you shared even how you were led to be your own business owner through working for other companies, and it takes time for that gift to be processed, the giftings rather to be processed into you, the gift going forward. So with that being said, Dee, if you could share with the listening audience just about your perspective on how you can brand how you branded your business. How did you get where you are through that brand?
Well, sure. First of all, thanks, Candace, for sharing that. I got here by doing a couple of things. Number one, I want to share with the listening audience. This is my second business. So I'll be transparent. I had a business 10 years ago. It was called Bowden Revenue Collection Services. BRC is what it was called 10 years ago. I jumped out there thinking I'd taken this class. I took this little planning on, okay, how you got a business plan? I thought I knew what I was doing. Oh, my goodness, I did not. I jumped out there. And because here was the thing. 10 years ago, I lost my job, and I wanted to start a business. So I said, okay, I know how to collect money. That's my main thing. I know how to collect money, especially business to business and business to government. That's where my gifts lie. So I went to school. I went and took this 8-week program, created a business, got a business plan. I said, okay, great. I know what I'm doing. Oh, my gosh. I did not. I didn't know the first thing about sales. I didn't know anything about operations. I didn't know about marketing. I just knew how to collect money. So I just figured, okay, I'm sharing this because I think a lot of people think that because you're great and when you do in your career, it automatically transfers into doing a business. Absolutely not. Oh, my goodness, it does not. What you do on your day job is because somebody's already mapped it out for you. Guess what? They already responded to the proposal. They already won the contract. You are just a person that's a slot in the contract to do the work that they've already done the pre-work for. I didn't know about all the pre-work when I went out to start my first business, and so I failed miserably. I got into crazy debt, had to shut it down, had to basically go back to work. And so I, shut that down. Like I said, had a crazy debt, paid it off, and went back to work. I went back to doing the two things I love doing. By day, I'm a contract closeout specialist on behalf of the federal government, so I recover money for them, and then I also have BCS Solutions. So this story takes place 10 years ago. So probably about 3 years ago, I went to a conference, and I kind of got this nudge around, you should recreate this again. And I'm like, because to be honest, I was afraid because I had made such a mess the first time. I was like, I'm not doing this again. But the nudge would not go away, and I kept hearing, you need to figure out how to take what you do and share this with people. So I didn't know what that meant. So I had enough sense to keep going to different events, and so I happened to have been blessed to go to the Steve Harvey's Act Like a Success conference that he had in Atlanta, and I saw all these people graduating from his program, and I said, wow, that's interesting. And somebody kept asking me, so what do you do? What do you do? I'm like, I collect money. For who? I'm like, well, I recover money from the federal government. I'm in the acquisition space, so if you know anything about acquisitions, it's the cradle to grave. I'm the grave part. I'm the one that recovers the money on behalf of the government. And then I also collect, can go in and teach companies how to manage their accounts receivable, figure out the disconnects, and help them, recover their money. And they're like, you know what a big skill that is? I'm like, yeah, kind of, sort of. No, you should really think about this. And, of course, I have fear of trying to start this again because I failed miserably the first time. But it wouldn't let me go. It's kind of like, I guess if you think about it, I think it's the story of Jacob, and he's wrestling with the angel, and he's like, no, I'm not letting you go till you bless me. Well, this has kind of been like that because I have not been able to get away from talking about this one thing. And so this time, instead of just jumping out there, I went to school. So I did graduate from Steve Harvey's Act Like a Success School of Business Acceleration. I went to school for a year. I got some coaches this time. I have a mentor this time. I read on a regular basis. I strive to put myself in communities of people that are talking about business or talking about being an entrepreneur. I'm not afraid to ask or say, look, I don't know. I don't know where we got this concept that you have to know everything when you start a business, when you start a project. The word says, if you don't, you have not because you ask not. It's like if you're lacking wisdom, ask me. That's what the word says. So that's what he says. That's what, he, me, and God. I mean, that's what his word says. It says if you don't know, ask. So I finally learned that. Okay, I don't know how to do all this. I know one thing really well. I know if you're a business that has a contract with another business and you have money that's owed to you, so long as you're not in litigation, I pretty much know how to untangle those disconnects and figure that out. And I also know, particularly if you deal with the federal or state government, as long as you're not in litigation, that's guaranteed money. And I know how to untangle that because I've done it and I've gotten awards for it, and I get that. And so I started this journey 3 years ago. I just launched BCS Solutions last year, but I've been in this journey for the past 3 years of learning all of the different things I've learned. And now to go and to be open to change. I thought I was going to do the same thing I do during my day job, which is collect money. The Spirit has been changing that direction, and it's been opening up doors for me to speak, which is how I got here today. So I've been telling my story about how I started, how I failed, how I got back up, how I was like, I'm not doing this again, till I finally said yes. And now by me saying yes to God, He's opened up amazing opportunities like the things you read of my successes earlier, and then, of course, being on the show today.
Dee, I always say this is like a revelation of you just being transparent with everyone, and this is the revelation the Father spoke to my heart, and He said to me, there's no success without process. And you think about the God we serve, He's so expansive, He's such a creator, He does all things well, we cannot know His mind. And if you think about just how many cycles and how many processes that are needed just Think about your washing machine, right, and how